Hello everyone, my name is Dave and this is going to be my improv video for the community to address the ideas that could be used in AC6. Now this is going to be from a very personal perspective, so I know I can't appease everyone or keep everyone happy, so I'm just going to go ahead and say now that if you're not too familiar with older games, especially the older AC games, you'll see why in a little bit, why I kind of broadened the wording there to games in general. Then you might not agree with all of these, especially if you've only come into the series at AC4 and AC5. That being said, let's go ahead and go straight into the first thing that I want to go over, which is the single player campaign. I would like a classic AC single player campaign. That means that it follows the same thing or same concept that AC normally does, the cyberpunk setting with the corporations and the government and evil AI and the mercenaries seemingly being the ones that are there to clean up all the mess. The cyberpunk setting is really good. I would just like the English localization to be a little bit better for the future, because AC has a history of not being very good when it comes to storyline because of the localization. Going on to the next bullet point here, I would love for a full co-op campaign, not just co-op on certain missions. I would actually like to be able to, like with certain other games, most notably being ones like Halo, which are famous for the couch FPS co-op style gameplay. I would love to be able to sit down with a group of friends on the same console on split screen from the very beginning of the campaign to the very end, not missing out anything and not having to forfeit certain missions. I would not like it to be a sequel to anything or a prequel, so I would like it to be its own complete reboot again. The AC universe has had many reboots, and that's whether it's to do with various different games having issues with the storyline, whether they just decide to start again because they decide that they have either new technology to play around with in terms of the development of Armored Core 4, or whether they've completely ended a timeline in a certain universe, looking at Generation 3, which covers Armored Core 3 through to Last Raven. I honestly have this feeling that at the moment Armored Core 5 and Armored Core 4 have kind of been a bit of a letdown for the community in general in terms of story, and I would love to see something else, a complete fresh restart to the universe yet again, to give a little bit more imagination and uniqueness in terms of how it's done, rather than just be a sequel to something that we already know about, because then you can't really be as original because you're already working off established rules, whereas if you write something from scratch you can establish the rules as you're making up the actual game itself. I would like there to be a Last Raven style setup for the missions, including multiple endings and the way that the missions are changed based on the player's skill level. So a lot of people will know that in Last Raven there was multiple endings based on how well you did, and a lot of people have heralded Last Raven as being one of the best games in the series because you were rewarded with more missions that gradually got harder, to the point where you got a super secret ending if you played really well, and not everyone can unlock that, and that kind of earns you a little bit of internet bragging rights essentially, or it just forces you to get better if you want to complete the entire game. Because From Software has a reputation for making kind of hard games, I would like that to be a return, as that would make the game more interesting and add to its replayability. In terms of the customization level, I would like to have the customization level for emblems and decals especially be on the same level as the most recent Forza games. The reason why I say this is because a lot of people spend hours and hours and hours trying to make emblems currently in AC from what I've seen online, and yet Forza has a similar customization menu which just has a little bit more ease of accessibility, which allows for people to customize it in all kinds of different ways that you can't do on AC5. It's a lot easier to place decals. You can place a lot more decals. You can download ones from other people's profiles that they've made online, and overall it just makes everything a little bit more personal, giving you that little bit more creativity and more options to allow the ease of designing an AC and making it more personal and your own kind of thing, because that's what AC is for quite a lot of people. It's a personal experience of building something that represents you in game, and then you being able to take that out and say, look, this kicks ass, this represents me, and being able to customize something as much as possible, as easy as possible, so it doesn't take as long, and allows people to get back into the game and still enjoy it and not have to go through the long rigmarole of going through the customization and figuring out the decal system and how to use it properly. Having a much easier way of creating similar, very detailed art would make it a lot cooler and more user-friendly. Also, going on to a similar thing that kind of bleeds into the other category that I have literally just named MISC, or just add-ons, I would like to be able to download other people's customizations, such as emblems and things, through a basically a file sharer. We had something similar, if you remember, if you were around and played Halo 3 on the Xbox, they had a file share system which you could access, which was very easy to use, where you could upload your own levels, your own replays, and other game types and things. I would love to have something similar, because that really grew the community and allowed the community to share a lot of the different custom maps and other things like that. And Forza has a similar file share system for sharing customizations and using an auction house for buying cars and things. I reckon that would be really interesting if you could use it for not just customization, but if you could buy and sell different weapons from the game in like an auction house for in-game money, not actual credit card money that you have to hook your card up to the game. I would prefer it to be all in-game currency that you get from completing missions and things, and I would love for them to have like rarer parts that you can get, and you could have the option of selling those on or customizing them in a certain way and selling them on, so you can buy different parts that maybe have been tuned a certain way, so that you can test out other people's builds and things that way, or just take certain custom parts that have been tuned in a certain manner and test those out on a build that you're trying to perfect, because it might alter it in a certain manner, kind of similar to how we had, I think it was stabilizers in Armored Core 4, but a lot more personal in the way that you can trade them, because it gets the community interacting with each other a little bit more. Something else that I would like that links in with story and kind of multiplayer, and I've got this one from Doom. I would like a mission creator, so that we're able to create and share missions, just putting primitive kind of AI down and allowing you to manipulate some of the AI, so that you can kind of say, well, okay, in this area this AI is defending, and then have, say, like a mini boss program to come in at some point. For those who don't know about this, please go and search up Doom's level creator. There are a lot of interesting things going at the moment with that, which gets the community, again, being really creative and being able to share the content. The idea with this Armored Core that I'm coming up with, in terms of the overall idea, is that it's a lot more accessible, a lot easier to play, and in terms of the community itself, everyone always tends to focus on the community and say, okay, we need everyone to keep playing and keep interacting with each other, and all these ideas are designed to keep everyone interacting and sharing the content with each other, so that they can then show off to each other and be like, oh, check this out, it's awesome. And then it's just a simple case of finding it in a file share menu, clicking download, and sure enough, then it's on your console. You can go into a menu and try it out. Along the same lines, I would not like any small DLC. We see a lot of things now, like skins and other things from, like weapon packs and parts from from Software, but you also see similar things with like Street Fighter, where they have like certain downloadable skins. I would much prefer it if we went back to the old style way of doing DLC, in which if it was going to be DLC, it would be something similar to having Armored Core 4 already and then downloading the DLC, which would be a complete full game similar to, say, Armored Core for Answer. So if you were creating expansion packs or extensions of that universe, it would be the DLC and not just these really tiny DLCs. This originally started off, this idea, as something that I got from the original Half-Life when Opposing Forces and Blue Shift were released. That's something that a lot of people reference, in that Opposing Forces was the perfect expansion for Half-Life, and you weren't just paying for a couple of skins, it was a full story and expansion with new weapons and a new story, and it had hours of content. We don't want to get sold really tiny amounts of content anymore, and I think this would be worth it. In terms of other optimization and little changes before I go into multiplayer, I would ditch what I call the Gears of War style graphics. This really kind of solidified itself in the industry after Gears of War came out, where everyone saw the kind of what they would call realistic colours, and a lot of reviewers have moaned on about the fact that people have been desaturating some of the games and making everything as what they call realistic as possible by making everything a muddy brown colour or having it as realistic as possible, lacking colour and things like that. I would ditch that completely because that is very rampant in AC5. And I do not like the way that it seems really gloomy and depressing. I feel that artistically, the way that you can appeal to more people is by adding more colours and making it a little bit more, I suppose you could call it imaginative. The reason why I say that is because you have, in contrast, a game like Xenoblade Chronicles X, which is full of colour and is amazing, and nobody complains about that because the artwork in it is fantastic and it's more of a fantasy setting, and the colours kind of bring to life your imagination, and it solidifies itself as an idea which is unique and part of this fantasy setting, and it's not meant to be real. Now, because of AC being giant robots and everything, I think the focus should be less on making it realistic and grimdark and more a little bit less real, so you can experiment with different ideas, because the moment you start focusing on something being real or realistic, you then ground it in some sort of real world rules and physics, which then means you're playing by those rules instead, and it kind of limits the creativity and originality. So, anyway, onto multiplayer. This is where I'm going to annoy a lot of people, or really get a lot of people arguing with me. First off, it's got to focus on the level design. This is where it comes into the whole thing of whether you like the old games or not, or whether you just like old games in general. This is where this conversation comes in. I brought up this idea because I played a lot of old school shooters in my time when I was growing up, most notably arena shooters like Unreal Tournament 99, and some of the levels in that are absolutely fantastic, and you'll find that a lot of older shooters cater a lot to ground-based and mid-air combat, either by using the vertical axis of the level and including like different bridges in levels and things like that. The best examples would be levels like Morpheus on Unreal 99 and not Facing Worlds, but what was the other one? I think it was Phobos that I'm currently showing on screen, or I want to show on screen because I've got footage of it. These levels are really well designed and have a variety of different platforms and things that you can interact with. And old AC used to be like that. You had a couple of levels that were designed for all range of ACs, but if you had a flying type AC or one that was slightly lighter than a tank, you could use the vertical parts of the level to your advantage to be able to ambush people, and it became a lot more interesting in terms of trying to shoot down enemy ACs while they're in the air. I would love to see more levels balanced in terms of design to include a focus on vertical elements. So say for instance you have a level which is like a wasteland and you have cliffs on one side. You could still keep, like with most AC 5 and 4 levels, the flat land that seems to be the main focus of AC 4, especially on most of the levels. They're just wide open areas. I would love to still have those wide open areas and ground areas with a little bit of cover, similar to AC4 and AC5, but I would love to be able to go in and out of, say, like cave areas that are in the mountains and things like that to provide extra cover and different little places to engage people, similar to if you had, say, I'm trying to think here, Armored Core 2, you have a couple of levels that are out in the open, and you have one cave level in particular as well that are split into different multiplayer levels. I would love it if, for instance, you had one of those open levels with that cave area as well as an add-on in the same level, so that you could fly into that area and have multiple areas to engage people. I know a lot of people at the moment are focused on tactical gameplay, but I just think that being able to go in and out of certain parts of the level would add to that tactical element, because then you'd be trying to hold areas or storm areas as well because of the amount of cover that you would get. I would get rid of quick boosting. A lot of people from Generation 4 are going to hate that, but having gone back and replayed the older generations again, I honestly think there's more skill when you're not quick boosting all over the place. Plus, you could kind of emulate it in Armored Core 2, but it wasn't as fast and you couldn't spam it. Now, on top of that, a lot of Armored Core 5 players might say, oh, you know, that's great, screw the Armored Core 4 players because there's no quick boosting. I would get rid of a lot of the city environments. I know AC is primarily a game based in cities, but I would not have it focused primarily on a lot of city environments similar to AC5, which just seem to be city environment after city environment, and then the odd wasteland populated with the odd building here and there. I'd have a more diverse range of landscapes and complexes and cities and other various things, similar to if you were to take the first 3 generations and slap all the multiplayer maps together. That would give you a variety of open area maps, different cities, complexes, and at least a couple of space levels. That I think would be really good, and I would also, on a similar note, like to include more levels with interactive elements similar to the forest level from the original AC. Many people will remember a similar mission in the campaign for Destroy Dark Soul, where you have to hunt a load of tanks in the desert, and the desert is full of landmines. I would actually love to have the multiplayer level for that, which was a forest populated by trees and landmines that would go off and really kill your health if you messed up. I would love for levels like that to be in, because then it really makes you think about what you're doing rather than just kind of boosting around really quickly and trying to get from cover to cover. This kind of made you think about, okay, how am I going to break the enemy's line of sight? Am I going to be okay when I take off above the tree line? Am I going to be okay when I land? And it was always a 50% chance whether you'd land on a landmine or not. And plus the enemy could set those off with a well-placed grenade, which would either draw your attention to a certain area or damage you depending on where you were. So you could use it kind of as a lure to get someone into a certain area, or you could use it to damage them. Those kind of things I would love to have to change up gameplay a lot. In terms of other little things to add to the gameplay, I mentioned this a while ago in a podcast, but during game I would like the ability to switch your unit on your death, similar to Overwatch, how if you die you can select a different character and try something else. I would like to be able to save, say, maybe like 3 to 5 builds before a match, and as soon as I get killed, I would love to be able to try a different build against the current one, similar to Overwatch, or like Battlefield uses a similar thing with loadouts. I would love to do that in multiplayer because it keeps everything fresh and it keeps people constantly trying to counter each other, or them sticking with their favourite build that they might have played through campaign with and brought over to see how good it is via multiplayer. It'd just be interesting in terms of trying to keep everything dynamic and keep everyone constantly on their toes and thinking about how the enemy is reacting to them and how they're going to counter that. I would get rid of the always online mode from AC5, purely because for those people who do not have the internet, and there are people that do, or just do not like having the internet on all the time because it has to be a persistent world for that to happen, I would like it to be more of a matchmaking lobby style multiplayer ranking list where you go onto multiplayer and it says, okay, these are the games playing in the lobby at the moment, and it matches you based on your skill level or your ranking, depending on whether you're playing a ranked match or an unranked match or maybe a custom match. That also allows for clans to be in there as well, so you can get to into a group of people that are in a clan and then go join with them on a matchmaking level, so you can play multiplayer with friends and with clans, and that would keep the competitive element that is already there. It would just get rid of the always online lobby, because the only reason that's there at the moment is to make it feel as though it's a self-perpetuating world that is similar to the real world. But if the server goes down, as most people have noticed, it takes away a couple of things. I think the last time I was on AC5, when I wasn't able to get online with my team, I couldn't access certain parts and other things, and I don't agree that you should be penalised by having parts taken away by not being online. I also, for the competitive section of it, I think that there should be seasons like in Overwatch where you play 10 or 5 matches and get ranked to a certain skill level, and then you play for like 3 or 4 months and your skill level can either rank up or rank down during that, and then at the end you're awarded, say, a special item or whatever, depending on where you rank on the overall leaderboard. I think that was a really cool idea. And the last two things that I would include are an assault game type, which would be very similar to attack someone's base that we have now at the moment, but with team gameplay being focused on something similar to like Unreal Tournament again, where you're pushing an objective, and the idea is that the objective is dynamic, it changes from each time. So you might be infiltrating someone's base, and then next minute you might be collecting info or something in another certain area of the world. And the idea is that it's constantly changing, and you can either play versus the AI or versus other players. And that brings me to the last one, which is Horde Mode. Very similar to Warzone off Halo 5, and obviously Horde Mode off Gears of War. I would love to have a co-op versus the AI experience with about between 4 and 6 other players, in which you just play as one of 3 loadouts that you can choose from your save data, and you can switch mid-game, similar to how I mentioned before, where you switch when you die or at the end of a round when you've gone through so many waves. And the idea for that could be that you throw in certain bosses, again similar to how we've seen in the open world war segment for AC5. You could throw those bosses in every 5 waves or something, or every 5 rounds, whatever. It depends on how Gears counts it, because I've not been on Gears in a while. I just thought that'd be pretty neat for the people that don't want to be playing really hardcore competitive. So that is my overall idea for what the next AC game could be like. It'd be pretty cool if it was like that, because it'd be, in terms of speed, I would like it to be not as fast as AC4, but not as slow as AC5. So, from my perspective, because I'm always playing a kind of mid to light build in most of the other games, to me that would feel about the right speed. Now, for obviously people who prefer slower tactical gameplay, you've got the tank builds, and for people who want to go faster, you've got the light builds. So just having that kind of basic speed for medium be the standard, I think that would be good for balancing and be one of those things that kills this whole argument about, oh, AC4 was crap because it was so fast, and AC5 was crap, because of it being too slow, because that tends to be the most common argument that we get now. Instead, I'd do this to solve that issue, because with AC4, the whole reason of it being so fast was because they made the environments really expansive, because they just thought, okay, we've got new technology with the new Xbox, we'll make the levels really huge and beautiful. But at the same time, if you kept the ACs the same speed as the previous games, even with the overboosting, it would be really slow. That's why they made the ACs faster. And in a similar fashion with AC5, they made the environments kind of a lot smaller, but they made everything more tactical and added more scenery to make the gameplay a little bit slower. Now, I know that's not the case for some multiplayer games that people have played, but overall gameplay and people's first impressions of the games really do have a lasting effect. And whereas AC4 is known as the more faster one of the series, 5 is slower considerably compared to it, and compared to certain other titles, depending on your build. Now, I know people are going to disagree with me over that because of scam mode and the Japanese servers, but that's just, like I said, I can't please everyone. Anyway, I'm hoping you at least agree with some of these features and think that they're pretty cool. Comment below, comment on Facebook, because I'm going to post this on the Facebook page, see what you think, and, if you want, do a response to this, and give your ideas of what you think AC6 should be in the future. Anyway, till next time, bye. 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 Bye.